Today, we begin our study of Emily Bronte's remarkable novel, Wuthering Heights, a powerful story of love, passion, revenge, and the darker side of human nature.
Wuthering Heights is the only novel written by Emily Bronte. It was published in 1847 under the pseudonym Ellis Bell and is now regarded as a classic of English literature. The novel is set mainly on the Yorkshire moors and tells the turbulent story of the Earnshaw and Linton families, particularly the intense relationship between Heathcliff and Catherine Earnshaw. 1. Detailed plot summary. The arrival of Heathcliff. The novel begins with Mr. Lockwood, a tenant of Thrushcross Grange, visiting his landlord Heathcliff at Wuthering Heights. Lockwood finds the household mysterious and experiences a disturbing encounter involving Catherine's ghost. After returning to the Grange, Lockwood asks the housekeeper, Nellie Dean, to explain the history of Wuthering Heights. Many years earlier, Mr. Earnshaw, the owner of Wuthering Heights, brings home an orphan boy from Liverpool and names him Heathcliff. Earnshaw treats Heathcliff with affection, but his son Hindley becomes jealous and hostile toward him. Heathcliff develops a very close relationship with Hindley's sister, Catherine Earnshaw. They grow up together and spend much of their childhood exploring the moors. Catherine and Heathcliff. Catherine and Heathcliff become deeply attached to one another. Their relationship is associated with the freedom and wildness of the moors. However, Catherine's visit to Thrushcross Grange, the home of the wealthy Linton family, introduces her to a more refined social world. She becomes acquainted with Edgar Linton, a wealthy and respectable young man. Catherine eventually decides to marry Edgar. Her decision is influenced partly by her desire for social status and security. Heathcliff overhears a conversation in which Catherine says that marrying him would lower her social position. Hurt by what he hears, Heathcliff leaves Wuthering Heights. Heathcliff's return. After several years, Heathcliff returns unexpectedly as a wealthy and apparently successful man. His personality, however, has become harder and more vengeful. He is determined to take revenge on those whom he believes have mistreated him. He exploits Hindley's weaknesses and eventually gains control of Wuthering Heights. He also marries Isabella Linton, Edgar's sister, largely as part of his revenge against Edgar. The marriage is unhappy, and Isabella eventually escapes from Heathcliff. Catherine's death. Catherine's relationship with Heathcliff remains emotionally intense even though she is married to Edgar. The conflict between Catherine, Heathcliff, and Edgar causes great emotional suffering. Catherine becomes seriously ill after giving birth to her daughter, Cathy Linton, and eventually dies. Catherine's death has a profound effect on Heathcliff. Instead of freeing himself from his obsession with her, he becomes increasingly consumed by her memory. Heathcliff's revenge continues. Heathcliff's revenge does not end with the deaths of the first generation. Hindley's son, Hareton Earnshaw, becomes one of the victims of Heathcliff's revenge. Heathcliff deliberately deprives Hareton of education and raises him in a degraded position. Meanwhile, Heathcliff's son, Linton Heathcliff, is weak and sickly. When Cathy Linton grows older, Heathcliff manipulates her relationship with Linton. He ultimately forces Cathy into a marriage with his son because he wants to obtain control of the Linton property. Linton dies soon afterward, leaving Cathy under Heathcliff's control. Cathy and Hareton. The second generation gradually changes the direction of the story. At first, Cathy looks down on Hareton because of his lack of education and refinement. Eventually, however, she recognizes his good nature. Cathy begins helping Hareton with his education, and their relationship develops into genuine affection. Unlike the destructive relationship between Catherine and Heathcliff, their relationship is characterized by education, understanding, forgiveness, and mutual respect. Heathcliff's death and the ending. As Heathcliff grows older, his desire for revenge gradually loses its importance. His thoughts become increasingly dominated by Catherine. He eventually dies at Wuthering Heights. After Heathcliff's death, Cathy and Hareton prepare to marry. Their relationship suggests that the younger generation has finally broken the cycle of hatred and revenge. The novel closes with an atmosphere of peace. Although the mysterious suggestion that Heathcliff and Catherine's spirits remain connected preserves the gothic quality of the ending. 2. Major characters. 1. Heathcliff. Heathcliff is the central male character and one of the most complex figures in English fiction. He begins life as an orphan taken into the Earnshaw household. His intense attachment to Catherine is later transformed by rejection and humiliation into an overwhelming desire for revenge. He is passionate, proud, determined, cruel, and emotionally complex. He cannot easily be classified as either a traditional hero or a simple villain. 2. Catherine Earnshaw. Catherine Earnshaw is the central female character of the first generation. She is passionate, independent, proud, and emotionally intense. She loves Heathcliff deeply but chooses to marry Edgar Linton, partly because of social considerations. Her inability to reconcile her emotional desires with social expectations becomes a major source of tragedy. 3. Edgar Linton. Edgar Linton is Catherine's husband and the owner of Thrushcross Grange. He represents civilization, refinement, wealth, and social respectability. He genuinely loves Catherine but cannot understand the extraordinary bond between her and Heathcliff. 4. Hindley Earnshaw. Hindley is Catherine's brother and Heathcliff's principal childhood enemy. His jealousy leads him to mistreat Heathcliff. Later, his own destructive behavior contributes to his downfall. His treatment of Heathcliff also helps establish the cycle of cruelty that dominates the novel. 5. Isabella Linton. Isabella is Edgar's sister. She becomes fascinated by Heathcliff but eventually discovers his cruel nature. Her unhappy marriage demonstrates the danger of confusing fascination with genuine understanding. 6. Nellie Dean. Nellie Dean is the principal housekeeper and one of the novel's most important narrators. She tells most of the history of the Earnshaw and Linton families to Lockwood. Because the story is filtered through her perspective, readers must consider her personal judgments and possible biases. The novel's unusual narrative structure uses Lockwood, Nellie, and other embedded perspectives to create distance between the reader and the events. 7. Hareton Earnshaw. Hareton is Hindley's son. Because of Heathcliff's revenge, he grows up without proper education and is treated as an inferior. Despite his difficult upbringing, he retains a good nature. His eventual relationship with Cathy represents hope, reconciliation, and a new beginning. 8. Cathy Linton. Cathy Linton is the daughter of Catherine Earnshaw and Edgar Linton. She initially possesses some of the pride associated with her mother but gradually becomes more compassionate and mature. Her relationship with Hareton helps bring the two families together. 9. Linton Heathcliff. Linton Heathcliff is Heathcliff's son. He is physically weak and emotionally dependent on others. Heathcliff uses him as an instrument in his plan to gain control over Thrushcross Grange. Main themes. 1. Love and passion. Love is the most prominent theme of Wuthering Heights. But Bronte presents love as a powerful and sometimes destructive force rather than simply as a source of happiness. The relationship between Catherine and Heathcliff is extraordinarily intense. Their attachment goes beyond ordinary romantic affection and becomes central to both their identities. However, their love is complicated by pride, social ambition, jealousy, and revenge. The novel therefore asks whether intense passion can exist without destroying the people involved. 2. Revenge. Revenge is one of the strongest forces driving the plot. Heathcliff believes that he has been humiliated and deprived of the life he wanted. Instead of overcoming his suffering, he spends years seeking revenge. His revenge affects not only the people who originally hurt him but also their children. The novel therefore presents revenge as a cycle of suffering that can pass from one generation to another. The younger generation eventually offers an alternative to this cycle through love and forgiveness. 3. Social class and social status. Social class has a major influence on Catherine's decision to marry Edgar rather than Heathcliff. Edgar belongs to a wealthy and respectable family, whereas Heathcliff has uncertain origins and initially occupies a socially inferior position. Catherine's conflict demonstrates how social expectations can interfere with personal desires. The novel consequently examines the relationship between love, marriage, wealth, and social status. 4. Nature versus civilization. The novel repeatedly contrasts Wuthering Heights with Thrushcross Grange. Wuthering Heights, surrounded by the wild Yorkshire moors, represents nature, freedom, passion, wildness, emotional intensity. Thrushcross Grange represents civilization, wealth, order, comfort, social refinement. Catherine and Heathcliff are strongly connected with the natural landscape, while Edgar is more closely associated with the civilized world of the Grange. The contrast between the two settings reflects the conflict between natural passion and social order. 5. Reconciliation and the cycle of generations. The novel is divided broadly between the first generation and the second generation. The first generation, especially Catherine, Heathcliff, Hindley, and Edgar, is dominated by passion, jealousy, social conflict, and revenge. The second generation, particularly Cathy and Hareton, offers the possibility of reconciliation. Cathy teaches Hareton and helps him improve his education. Their growing affection suggests that people can overcome the hatred inherited from previous generations. Thus, the ending provides a degree of hope after the darkness of the earlier story. Conclusion. Wuthering Heights is much more than a conventional love story. It is a complex novel about passion, revenge, social class, nature, suffering, and reconciliation. The tragic relationship between Catherine and Heathcliff forms the emotional center of the novel, while Cathy and Hareton provide a contrasting model of love based on understanding and mutual growth. Through its Gothic atmosphere, isolated Yorkshire setting, complex characters, and innovative multiple narrator structure, Emily Bronte created a novel that continues to occupy an important place in English literature. The work was initially controversial, but it is now widely regarded as a classic.